Hello. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded. I just have not been feeling like pointing a camera in my face, but some things haven't changed. I do still love drawing, and I do still love coffee as well. So I thought for this first video back, I'd make a video about creating the brand identity around a hypothetical cafe, a surfer cafe called Southern Brew. This includes packaging, signage, loyalty cards, menus, and more. So as usual, the process starts in Procreate doing some sketches, and for this I just began sketching some people holding surfboards, and there were some specific sort of things that I wanted to make drawings for, such as the logo itself, or for specific sort of uses of drawings. So for example, like signage outside, I had the idea, for example, of making a sign saying bare feet welcome and swimwear welcome, because this cafe Southern Brew is meant to be a cafe for surfers that you'd find along the beach all over the world, sort of wherever people go surfing. So of course that would mean people would be welcome with swimwear, for example. But aside from those for a specific purpose, I was also just generally sketching people with surfboards that could be used throughout the branding. And then I go over to actually creating the final drawings. I am tracing over this one in this instance, which is the actual logo, and I will change the mug later on to a takeaway cup for the final design, but this is the process I'm going through at the moment. Most of the drawings, however, I'm just freehanding and not tracing over sketches, because it just ended to work out quite well. And I'm using Procreate for this process as well. Normally I'd maybe switch over to Photoshop at this point, because it's just a bit easier to work on, especially for larger scale, sort of more complicated illustrations. However, for these small individual drawings that I'm just going to be using as assets, I think Procreate is more than enough, especially because I'm going to vectorize the drawings later on, and therefore the quality doesn't actually matter, and I really like this brush that I'm using. I don't have it in Photoshop, and that's why I'm using Procreate at this stage. I then also create a font for this project in Procreate using a template by a website called Calligrapher, which is a pretty handy website where you can just build your own font. And then I just localize all the individual drawings and save them as separate PNGs with transparent backgrounds, and just export them and airdrop them over to my MacBook for the next step. Once I have all my illustration as separate PNG files, I import them into Adobe Illustrator, then I crop them to size and image trace them, which converts them into vector files. And when I'm image tracing them, the only thing I sort of need to look out for is to select ignore color and make sure the color is set to white so that there's no background, and then we've got nice little vector files. Next I'm going on to creating the logo. Now I've already got the illustration for the logo done, so all I need to do is add some text to it as well. And I've got two different fonts to choose from. So there's my self-made one, which is going to be sort of the primary font for anything sort of bigger, headings, that sort of thing. And then there's a serif font that I've selected as a sort of secondary font that is going to be used for more sort of text that needs to be clearly readable. And for the logo, I'm combining them both. I'm using mostly the italic version of the serif font with some letters from the other font, just kind of because I thought it looked nice. And when you're creating a logo for a brand, it's very helpful to have an inverted version of that logo as well, so they can use it on a darker background. So for that, I am duplicating my logo and sort of filling out all the negative spaces. Then I'm expanding the path or offsetting the path so that it is slightly larger than the original illustration. Then I copy back on top of that the original logo and subtract it so that the original lines of the original logo are not transparent. So basically what you have now is a logo made of only of the highlights from that drawing, and when you copy it onto a darker background, the original lines that are now transparent are going to read as darker lines. And for the final step of this project, I'm downloading lots of different free mock-ups from the internet that I can apply this branding to. Now, this is a perfect way of sort of applying your branding or having something to work towards when you don't actually have a client. Now, this is just a hypothetical project, and usually if you're working with a client, they would obviously have specific things they would want you to create designs for, whether that is a receipt or a menu or a poster, an advert, all those sort of things. Now, if you don't have that, downloading these mock-ups is a great way to sort of come up with something to work towards, because I'm working on a loyalty card right here, and the mock-up tells me the exact size of the loyalty card, so I can create a design that sort of fits that, and the same goes for all the posters and the t-shirts and the menus and everything that I'm doing later on. So you don't just sort of come up with a random dimension for whatever you're doing, but you have something specific to work towards that is also going to look nice later on. Which brings us to why I am even creating these designs for this hypothetical surfer cafe, and the reason for that is that I believe as an illustrator or any sort of other creative, you should be creating the work that you would like to be hired for. Now, I would obviously love to be hired to create the branding for a surfer cafe, but that is a very niche sort of thing. But the nice thing about creating these hypothetical projects is that you can have a bit of fun with it and come up with something fun. Now, I do like surfing, even though I might not be the best at it, and I obviously also enjoy going to cafes and drinking coffee, so I thought this would be a fun sort of crossover to create the branding for a very unique business. And who knows, maybe a cafe would see this project and think that my style can be applied to their branding, or maybe a surf shop would see this project and think that my style can be applied to their branding as well, and they can just see that I can come up with a range of ideas for a certain brand. And aside from the original illustrations that you saw me creating in the beginning, as well as the logo, there's some other elements that I am continuously using throughout all these different branding designs, and that is, for example, as I mentioned earlier, the typeface. So I've got the two different typefaces, the handwritten one and the serif one, and then there's also a color palette, so I'm using the same 5 colors plus white throughout all of these different designs to just keep that consistency going. And lastly, I also have these sort of round blobs that you see me using throughout, these sort of textured circles. I first used them on the loyalty card and just thought they looked quite cool, and the nice thing about them as well is that I can use them to create wave shapes as well. If you could sort of scale them up, it looks like it's a breaking wave. So here in this billboard, for example, I'm using them to suggest that shape. This billboard is one of my favorite outcomes, my favorite mock-ups from this project. I think it turned out pretty cool, and there wasn't even that much work that went into it. However, some of these other mock-ups that you saw me creating within the last couple minutes, I don't actually end up using, but it was a good thing to create a wide range of different outcomes of different mock-ups, and then I can sort of choose the most effective ones out of that range. And that concludes my little surfer cafe branding project. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you want to leave a like on the video, feel free to. Now, let us look at the branding of Southern Brew.